Disclaimer: the following story contains themes that may be disturbing to some viewers, including home invasion and psychological distress. Viewer discretion is advised. It was a crisp autumn evening when my parents decided to go out for a rare date night. They hadn't had much time to themselves since the birth of my younger brother, so I volunteered to stay home and watch him. I was 17, and babysitting my little brother was no big deal, or so I thought. My brother, Timmy, had just turned 5. After dinner, I helped him with his homework, and we watched a bit of TV before it was time for his bedtime routine. By 8 p.m., Timmy was tucked in and fast asleep, leaving me alone to enjoy the quiet evening. I settled into the living room with a bowl of popcorn and a horror movie queued up on Netflix. The irony of watching a scary movie while home alone didn't escape me, but I enjoyed the thrill. The movie was halfway through when I heard the first noise, a soft, almost imperceptible thud coming from the kitchen. At first I dismissed it as the house settling or maybe the wind, but then it came again, louder this time. I paused the movie and strained to listen, my heart beginning to race. The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards. I told myself I was being paranoid and resumed watching the movie. Just as I was starting to relax, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. I jumped, my heart pounding in my chest. Grabbing my phone, I crept towards the kitchen, every step feeling like a mile. I peeked around the corner and saw the back door slightly ajar, swaying gently in the breeze. Panic surged through me. I knew I had locked that door. I edged closer, my eyes scanning the room for any signs of an intruder. The kitchen was a mess. Drawers were open, and utensils were scattered across the floor. Someone had been here. I quickly locked the door and called the police, whispering my situation to the dispatcher. She assured me that officers were on their way and told me to find a safe place to hide. I raced upstairs to Timmy's room, locking the door behind me and hiding us both in his closet. Timmy woke up, frightened by my urgency. I hushed him, trying to keep him calm as I listened for any sounds of movement in the house. Minutes felt like hours as we sat there in the dark, my mind racing with fear and dread. Suddenly I heard footsteps on the stairs. My breath caught in my throat and I clutched Timmy tightly. The footsteps were slow and deliberate, as if the intruder knew we were hiding and was taking his time to find us. The doorknob to Timmy's room rattled, and then I heard the door slowly creak open. I held my breath, praying that the closet door would remain closed. The footsteps grew closer, stopping right outside the closet. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure it would give us away. Just then, we heard the sound of police sirens approaching. The intruder hesitated, then quickly retreated. I listened as the footsteps receded down the stairs and heard the back door slam shut. A few minutes later, the police arrived. They searched the house and the surrounding area but found no trace of the intruder. The officers took our statements and assured us they would patrol the neighborhood for the next few nights. The experience left me shaken. For weeks, I couldn't sleep without a light on, and every little noise sent my heart racing. The sense of security I once felt in my own home was shattered. My parents installed a security system and new locks, but it took a long time for me to feel safe again. I never found out who the intruder was or what they wanted. The police believed it was likely a burglar who got scared off when they realized we were home, but the look of pure terror on Timmy's face as we huddled in that closet is something I'll never forget. To this day, the memory of that night haunts me. The feeling of being watched, the sound of those slow, deliberate footsteps, it's a nightmare I relive over and over. And every time I hear a creak or a thud in the night, I can't help but wonder if the intruder will ever come back. It was the middle of summer, and I had the house to myself for the weekend. My parents were out of town for a wedding, and my younger sister was staying with a friend. I was looking forward to some peace and quiet, maybe a chance to catch up on some reading and binge watch my favorite shows. The first night was uneventful. I spent most of it on the couch, engrossed in a horror movie marathon. Around midnight, I decided to call it a night and headed to bed. The house was silent, save for the occasional hum of the air conditioner. I was in a deep sleep when a loud bang jolted me awake. I sat up, heart pounding, trying to discern if the noise had been real or part of a dream. The house was eerily quiet again, but the sense of unease lingered. I checked my phone. 3:15 a.m. I decided to investigate, grabbing the baseball bat I kept under my bed for reassurance. I crept through the house, my eyes adjusting to the darkness. Everything seemed in order until I reached the kitchen. The back door, which I distinctly remembered locking, was wide open. A cold breeze blew in, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Panic set in. I quickly shut and locked the door, my mind racing with possibilities. Had I simply forgotten to lock it? Was someone inside the house? I checked every room, my grip tightening on the bat, but found nothing out of place. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination and returned to bed, though sleep did not come easily. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside set my nerves on edge. I double-checked all the locks and even considered calling my parents, but I didn't want to worry them unnecessarily. That evening, I settled in for another movie marathon, trying to distract myself. The hours ticked by, and soon it was past midnight again. I was dozing off when I heard a faint tapping sound. My heart skipped a beat. I muted the TV and listened intently. The tapping continued, rhythmic and deliberate. I followed the sound to the living room window. Through the curtain, I could see a shadowy figure standing on the porch, tapping on the window with a long, bony finger. Fear paralyzed me for a moment. Who was this person? What did they want? Gathering my courage, I peeked through the curtain. The figure was tall and gaunt, with wild, unkempt hair. Their eyes were wide and unblinking, staring directly at me. I stumbled back, my mind racing with terror. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking. I explained the situation to the dispatcher, who assured me that officers were on their way. The figure continued to tap on the window, a sinister smile spreading across their face. Minutes felt like hours as I waited for the police to arrive. Finally, I saw the flashing red and blue lights outside. The figure turned and disappeared into the darkness. The officers searched the property and the surrounding area but found no trace of the intruder. They took my statement and promised to patrol the neighborhood throughout the night. Despite their assurances, I felt no safer. I spent the rest of the night huddled on the couch, every noise amplifying my fear. The next morning, I found a note slipped under the front door. It read, "I like watching you sleep." My blood ran cold. I called the police again, and they launched a more thorough investigation, but there were no leads. The note was the only evidence. Determined to find some answers, I decided to set up cameras around the house. For days, nothing unusual happened, and I began to think the worst was over. Then one night, the cameras caught something. Around 3 a.m., the same shadowy figure appeared on the footage, standing at the foot of my bed, watching me sleep. Terrified, I showed the footage to the police, who were equally disturbed. They promised to keep a closer watch on my house and suggested I stay with a friend until the situation was resolved. I packed a bag and left that very night. The police continued their investigation, and eventually they caught the intruder. It turned out to be a man who lived a few blocks away, someone I'd never met. He had a history of stalking and breaking into homes, and his obsession with me had grown over time. Knowing he was behind bars brought some relief, but the experience left me deeply scarred. I moved to a new house in a different part of town, hoping to leave the memories behind. But every now and then, I still hear that faint tapping in my dreams, a haunting reminder of the night visitor who turned my life upside down.